Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mom.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining us again.
We always love doing this. And Mom, heading into July, how are you doing?
I am doing fine, Brandon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It feels surreal that we're already in July.
It is surreal that it's already that time period. And Brandon, I'm kind of excited for us because I am doing something that you have wanted to do for a while.
And Mom, what's that?
And just so our audience will know, Brandon has wanted me to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D, the first season, probably more. But anyway, we're going to start with the first season. um, he has talked about this for a long time. He said, I need to watch every single episode of the first season. So that is what we're going to do. And so we're going to attempt to put out an episode for the first season of S.H.I.E.L.D. Every Wednesday for the next couple months. And so we'll see how this goes. I mean, it might show up on a Thursday, but look for it typically on a Wednesday. And so we have already talked about the first episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. for one of our regular discussions. And so we are actually on the second episode of the first season, and it is not, and is titled 084.
Yeah, and we're excited to dive into it. This episode 084 debuted October 1st, 2013.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little synopsis in general about this particular episode. I'm gonna let Brandon lead actually a little bit afterwards, but in this particular episode, the crew and they're just kind of getting together because we now have Sky who has sort of joined the crew. But anyway, they go to Peru and they investigate a foreign object. And while they're there, they meet someone who Coulson knows. And we later find out that this particular person that he knows turns against him while they're on the plane. And then the new team has to work together in order to kind of rid of or defend themselves with this other group who they thought were initially friendly. And so that's in essence episode 2 of Agents of the first season. Brandon, did I leave anything out with that description?
No, I think you hit it.
All right, sounds great. All right. Well, some of the things I wanted to discuss, I will let you know, was that Brandon and I talked about. He said I need to kind of take a close look at some of the characters on the show and to kind of talk about some of the characteristics and traits that they have. Brandon, what else did you want me to talk about?
Yeah, so I also would love to hear like just some of your overall observations and sort of like what characters are you leaning towards or want to learn more about at this point?
All right. And Brandon told me by doing this that this is going to lead somewhere. So we'll see where this leads. But anyway, this is what I kind of learned. And we'll talk about each of the characters. Coulson, I've learned that he is trying to put a team together. And then he kind of makes a comment about a common enemy will make the team work together because it seems like his team is, and I don't want to use the words misfits because that's not it. They're a very smart group of people. It's just that they're an odd group to be together. And then we also find out that Reyes ends up being an enemy to Coulson. So I don't know if that means that this Reyes is going to show back up again or not, but we at least know in this episode that she ends up being an enemy. Melinda, we do find out that Melinda does not want to see combat again. So she is known as the Cavalry and she fights really well. With Grant, we know that he likes to work alone and he could be a little bit impulsive at times, but he prefers to work alone. From Sky, Sky is trying to figure out how she fits into this group. And then, but at the same time, as I mentioned before, Sky was the character who was kind of brought in after the first episode. And so she is not really a S.H.I.E.L.D. per se person, or I should say trained by them. She kind of has her own agenda. But anyway, she's still in contact with her hacking group. And so at the end of the episode, she did receive a text from them. We know that Fitz and Simmons, they're both very smart individuals. And then we know that the team itself destroyed a portion of the plane. And Nick Fury is not happy about this at all. And we know that this episode took place in, well, it took place on a plane, but initially they were in Peru. And so I'm not sure if this will be as significant later, but that's just what I kind of observed from this particular episode. All right, Brandon, what else do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and for anyone that hadn't tuned into our first Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. discussion that happened just about a year ago for our Action Month of July 2024, I did want to mention that whereas you're seeing the season and overall the series for the first time, I have watched the series all the way through. I started in 2018 and caught up from there, but that being said, there's only but so much I can really, like I said, comment on. But there are some observations that I have that I'd like to share. And so, as a little bit of background, is that while I remember some of the gist of what happens in season one, is that I don't fully remember like some of the intricate details. And so, for me, I was surprised with how much like characterization they were doing of the different characters and for instance, mentioning, I said, Agent Ward and how he's a specialist for Agent May, like about the cavalry and everything. There's things like that I didn't realize were mentioned within the second episode, and even just the plot of this episode. I don't know why I mentally thought this was later in the series. I mean, in the first season. But yeah, I thought it was a really enjoyable episode. And Mom, what did you think about Nick Fury showing up at the end?
I like Nick Fury, so it was very nice to see him. He's kind of a joy to watch on the show. So yes, I was happy to see Nick Fury show up at the end.
Yeah, I will say that cameo and at the end of this episode is actually what I remember most about episode two.
Okay, well that makes a lot of sense, and we can't forget about Lola, the car.
Yeah, don't touch her.
Yes, very true. All right, Brandon, what else did you want to discuss?
Well, I did just want to let you know too. So the end portion in which we do see Nick Fury. So, beginning of this episode, for a majority of the series, minus maybe about 2 or 3 episodes, they have those extra portions at the end that I guess in airing on ABC, it would have been the part right before the episode ends, like at the final commercial break. And so these are considered little stingers, and they're kind of like the after credit scenes that are in the movies, where sometimes it's a tease for the next episode or something they'll come back later, or sometimes it's just like a fun little gimmick like this.
Okay. Uh, well, I look forward to seeing what the next one is, Brandon. I say anything else.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I will say that for this first episode, or this first season, rather, there's certainly a lot of information online. But as I've been telling you, avoid the spoilers, and I think we're in for a fun ride.
All righty. Well, we thank everybody for kind of watching today. And I look forward to next Wednesday when we tackle another episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye bye.